Well, hello everyone, and thank you for visiting our channel again, the Institute of Africa Centered Thought. We have a special guest today, and we're going to pick up sort of where we left off with Dr. Moore about the upcoming conference, March 16th to the 17th. I am sitting in the lovely office of Dr. Marcia Tate Arunga, who is the Dean at Evergreen College in Tacoma. Um, the main campus is in Olympia, Evergreen State College. And I'd like to say that the reason that I felt this would be a good space is that we had the Ancestral Healing Conference here, and I believe it was 2021. And we honored Dr. Maxine Mims with a bus, as she is the founder of this spectacular school. And so it gives me honor to bring to you Dr. Marcia Tate Arunga and to talk a little bit about her experience with the conference, and more so, what are the goals of Evergreen College in Tacoma, as it is not a HBCU. I understand it's a HBCO, and she can explain to us exactly what that means. Dr. Arunga, thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to be with you, Dr. Orisade.
So, can you give us some reflection on the conference and what a HBCO is?
Yes, well, we did have a conference 2 years ago, but I'm very happy to say that I have attended every conference that you have held in the past, 5 or 6 years now.
Yes.
And each conference grows on the other. They become just higher quality presentations. You have had national speakers. We have honored the local people. They have been able to do quite a bit of their own creative and scholarly work and be able to present themselves to the community. The turnout has been amazing, even in COVID times. The turnout has been amazing. So I think it's a very important conference. It should be a nationally acclaimed conference, and one that people can grow as communities. So here in the Hilltop, as you have witnessed today with the book signing, and thank you for bringing your very important book and presenting it today, we are really looking at how to sustain the community that exists in the Hilltop, also being threatened under the guise of gentrification. And we know that change has to happen, but we also want to make sure we find ways to preserve the history and to make sure that people understand where they are geographically in Tacoma. So the Evergreen State College Tacoma campus is located in the Hilltop. It's actually been in the Hilltop now for maybe 30 years. 20 years here in this location and 10 years on Martin Luther King Street, just also on the Hilltop. And I think that Dr. Mims had a very strong intention of keeping the college located in a community that has largely Black and brown people, because the Evergreen State College generally is not a college that is open to people of color. We know that we in the Hilltop have the highest number of Black and brown students than any other college in the state. Now, I would say that's a compliment, but it's not, because our numbers are not that big. So it gives us an idea that with all the equity and inclusion and affirmative action and so forth that has occurred, we are still the fastest growing of people of color, Black and brown students. And we need to double our numbers. We look forward to having more numbers and really reaching out to the whole community, whether or not you are enrolled at Evergreen. Because if we are going to continue to sustain this community, we have to reach beyond the four walls and into the community where people are also dedicated to maintaining. So Dr. Joy Hardiman actually coined the term HBCO. Instead of being a historically Black college, we are historically Black but community owned. And indeed, it means that we have to stay true to a commitment of keeping our doors open for people in the community to learn right alongside people who are enrolled in the school for their BA degrees.
Well, I really appreciate um, you having this little time to speak with me about Evergreen and its role, that it has played a big role in the ancestral, well, now Africa Centered Ancestral Healing Conference, and all of the people you've mentioned, Dr. Mims, Dr. Hardeman, and yourself. Uh, that one other thing I'd like to commend Evergreen on as we move forward, even though you won't be with us at the conference this year, um, is that you always give homage to the natives of this spot, of this actual land.
Yes.
And with that comes healing. And I remember sometime in, I think last summer, you had a houseless drive.
Yes.
You renamed the people from homeless to houseless.
Yes. Yes. To unhoused, actually.
Yeah, unhoused.
Yes.
And that they all pulled together and started cleaning up and contributing what they had, which was nothing. And that Evergreen embraced that initiative to give some support to those people who were sleeping around the college on the ground, just to say that that is a major aspect of healing when we talk
Absolutely.
about ancestral healing. And it also heals the land that those natives um, lived on, which is this spot. So, in wrapping up with you, can you just tell us a little bit about the Native American culture that was here?
Well, first of all, when you talk about the unhoused people who lived here during COVID, we were surrounded by 49 tents. And so that was not 49 people. There were more than one person living in the tents at that time. And what we did was we had circles in the parking lot where we called people to come together, and we started to talk about what they had experienced, that caused them to be unhoused. And also looking at the overall structure of how does one become unhoused in the richest country in the world. So, for example, there was a time where public assistance, public housing was a lot more available. And eventually we found that the public housing that was here disappeared. It became affordable housing, which is different than public housing. And it really excluded a lot of the people who lived here or had families who lived here. Also, I think that there was a lot of mental illness in the area because of, partly because of COVID and isolation, but also the economy took a dip, and this would be probably the most victimized from the economy. Maybe menial jobs they had in the past were no longer available to them. And so what we found were compounded situations of living that it was hard to navigate. And it's interesting that you connect that with the fact that we are on Puyallup land. We're on the land of the Puyallup Indian tribe. And I want to tell you that when this college was founded by Dr. Maxine Mims, it was founded in her home. The Olympia College really did not believe or take seriously that people wanted to go to college in this territory. And she said, well, I would like to start this in my home. And eventually it outgrew her home. And the first people to offer her a place was the Puyallup Indian House. Now, the Puyallup Indian House at that time was a small 2-bedroom house in the area. But Ramona Bennett, who was the elder of the Puyallup people, invited her to come. She was actually a graduate of Evergreen State College. And she invited her that if you want to get out of your house, you are welcome to come to the Puyallup Indian house. Now, that was her blessing because, as you see now, the Puyallup Indian tribe have a huge acreage in Tacoma, and including the casino and many of the monstrosities you see built along the I-5 corridor are now attributed to the profits that the Puyallup Indian tribe was able to make. But at that time, they were of modest means, and I think they had just were able to conserve a very few a number of language of words in their language that they saved. They were not organized into the tribal council they have now, and they certainly didn't have the properties that they have now. So today they have affordable housing and public assistance for their people. They're able to educate their people. If they want to come to Evergreen, they are paid for by tuition and their book expenses so that they don't have to worry about the cost of going to college. They can come and participate here.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. And we are going to continue with maybe 10 more minutes of this video, but I appreciate you being my special guest as always. And enjoy your trip
Thank you.
out of the country, and you will be really missed at the conference.
Yes, I regret that.
It's okay.
I look forward to
It's
hearing
okay.
good things.
Yes, you will.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm picking up on our last video again. I spoke about trauma and a little bit about it more. As you can see this chart, we look at post-traumatic, the post-traumatic personality going on with the normal life part of the personality and the traumatized part of personality. So as you can see, this is the left brain and that is the right brain. And so each part of the brain holds a set of values. It holds trauma in different ways. The left side holds logical trauma. That's practical, what you can understand. The right side holds heart trauma, that of the subconscious that you do not understand. And it's important to look at that because Africa Centered Ancestral Healing is about, as Dr. Moore said, healing from the inside out. This is not therapy. Therapy can be a component and work well with healing, but therapy is not healing. Therapy is venting the problem. And most of the complications with therapy is that the diagnosis comes from the left side of the brain, which is a practical understanding. And the problem with that, as we saw with the Mental Deficiency Act in the last video, is that that is not always the case. And that points me to divination and prophecy, because these are two systems that come from the inside out. Except one is related to instinct and the other one intuition. What is the difference between divination and prophecy? Well, divination was categorized as sorcery, and prophecy was characterized as the trueness of the spirit. In other words, divination is the false prophet, and prophecy is the true prophet. That's just the simplest way to put it. And the other way to look at it, intuition and instinct, is ways of knowing. Instinct is survival. It is the first three chakras or energy systems in our bodies, dealing with creativity, the mental, and the emotional. The top chakras, the heart, the throat, and the third eye, are dealing with the higher self, and that part would be intuition. How it complicates healing is that naturally, because of how we learn, the first three chakras are about survival. It's about working, it's about money, it's about all those things that are not conducive to spiritual development. As a matter of fact, it sidetracks it. It's about the ego. So, what is that? The ego is necessary because it represents our dark side. Well, some people refer to it as a shadow. And the other side of that, our spiritual development, again, is represented by the upper chakras. So, when we look at many people say, oh, you, it's the ego, oh, you, everybody's a narcissist, according to people today. But there's no light without darkness. There's no darkness without light. And you've heard the phrase, there's always darkness before the dawn. Neither can exist. And we're in chapter 4 now. Ancestral Energy Transference. Number 1, it is conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. Number 2, the subconscious works with the ancestral belief system. The belief system reveals and unveils ancestral patterns, and ancestral patterns are communicated from the DNA to the RNA, which is the heart. The heart is the brain, and the brain is the brain, the physical brain. In understanding that, the etymology of it all talks about generational curses. You can look at people saying they're going to break the generational curse. Well, what is a curse? A curse is what you speak, but more overly is what you think. In my book on page 103, John Henry Clark said, history is a clock people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is a compass they use to find themselves on the map of human geography. Well, again, as I was beginning to say, the Black family, going back to Africa, West Africa primarily, there's an oral history. Even here in this country, the United States, from the plantation days prior to that, there's always been storytelling. And it's through those stories that we preserve our identity. But as generations continue to emerge, they do away with that. And as I started off the series with my great 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 grandfather, who told the story, documented it in a book, The Fugitive Blacksmith, which is the play that accompanies this year's conference. It kicks the conference off on Saturday, March 16th. Who he was and how this generational curse was broken and continues to, in different cycles of our family, be addressed. So when you curse, remember cursive writing, when you curse a thing, you're speaking from a very low vibrational level. It's not spell casting, because when you speak that, it only bounces back to you. What you accuse others of is what you are. So if you have families that are doing this to each other, they're cursing future generations. Because we don't have yesterday, we don't have tomorrow, we have now. We have now. And in the present of the times that we're living, it is important to look and ask yourself, what are your thoughts on your family? The next chapter we will go through is chapter 5 and 6, prior to the conference. Again, this is about healing. And the upcoming conference on March 16th and 17th will be exactly that. We're going to have workshops. We have speakers. Visit our website, www.iactnow0119.com. Get your tickets today. So I look forward to seeing you there. And as always, hit subscribe. If you like what you hear, let me know. And visit our website. There are some outstanding offers there. And we are issuing a call for papers on ancestral healing, and volunteers are needed.